with this, the financing, we will have a first start of a financing system which is expected to attract investment, not only from Indonesia, but also foreign investment. And I think this is extremely important. And the returns, of course, are the drivers for investments, apart from the ecological goals. Very important is that the people will be educated in general, how to build up, how to structure, so from a public relations, so that you see the role models of how they tackle the issues for becoming carbon neutral over the years. Thank you very much, and I'm available for questions.
Oops, sorry. How many times in the last year have we said you're muted?
It's meanwhile the most common comment. You are mute.
Share my docs is the other one. Well, it's a proven model. I remember as a student at MIT participating in the 10K competition back when we ran them for $10,000. But it's a wonderful way to mobilize another segment of the, we'll call it voluntary workforce, maturing workforce. We have the IEEE proposal for the senior people. And you've cast this 50K, 100K competition as a way to engage more of the younger set who are interested in a competitive environment, in a financial environment.
Just one comment, if I may, if you allow me.
Sure.
In Switzerland, we started in '98. And we created over 700 companies and over 7,000 jobs, even in Switzerland.
Even in Switzerland, that's fabulous. Somebody has to make the chocolate.
I just want to intervene just to say that Freddie has in his next text, I think out of 38 companies, 28 has gone to NASDAQ for listing. For being acquired, you're probably the most successful VCs in the biotech oncology in particular. So we are very grateful for this. Sorry, Ed, just to add in.
Okay. Freddie, thank you again. Colleagues, I warn you that there would be an opportunity to make a personal commitment, an institutional commitment to helping with these issues. So we're now going to take a form of a poll. Shobi, are you ready to orchestrate this?
Yes. So in the chat, thank you, Ed.
Let me give my example. So we're going to ask, are you ready to dedicate yourself or your organization to this quest? So you see, I was an aerospace engineer from the United States, which has to be the dirtiest job in the world in terms of screwing up with the climate. And I've come to Bali to help build a new university dedicated on the principles of sustainability. That's the sort of personal commitment that some of us can make. Others of us can make organizational. So over to you, Shobi.
All right. Thank you, Ed. So in the chat, let me just copy and repaste. I think this has been posted a few minutes back. You will, if you click on the link, you will find a template of Google slide where you can enter your own commitment and your own actions that you can undertake to help us meet our ambitions and goals. And we will do that. While you do that, we still have about at least 12 minutes, Ed, to invite others in the conversation. So I see some are already writing down your answer. Thank you.
So in the room, we have several people we'd like to recognize and offer the opportunity to make short comments. The first is the Minister of Energy, Arifin Tasrif. Excellency, if you're there, can you wave or make a few comments? Perhaps we've lost him.
Minister will speak, I think, later at the plenary, so maybe can pass to the others.
Okay. Next is the Vice Minister for the Environment and Forestry, Aliou Dahon. He was with us.
I think he spoke in the plenary earlier. So,
Yes, he did. And I don't.
Bunani, I think Bunani is here too. Yeah, from the Marves.
Yeah.
I see Bunani, yeah.
How about
Yes.
Ibu Nani Hendrit Arti?
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Edward.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak in this important event. So Indonesia and US have a lot of experience related to the climate change issue. So there is a need to strengthen cooperation between two countries in the form of the task force climate. I think we have agreed with this step, especially if we have the same but differentiated responsibility. And we still need the support of the US in the terms of technology, innovation, and finance to control climate change. As we know, Indonesia is an archipelagic country with the second longest coastline in the world. So not only focus on the mitigation, but also in adaptation, especially in the coastal resilience. So therefore, it is important to promote cooperation in regard on the mangrove rehabilitation and coral reef restoration that need technology, socio-economy, also research and innovation. In addition, currently we are developing the Herbal and Horticulture Center in Polung in the North Sumatra with special purposes for the conservation, research, and innovation of the medicinal plants. And in the same time, also this center can support the food estate program with the concept of the smart agriculture. So this joint task force is expected to produce concrete cooperation between two countries. I think we have presented by the DG Dadan in the terms of technology and innovation for energy sector, such as transitioning from fossil energy to renewable energy, where the US has a success experience in the phasing out of 25 gigawatt steam power plant. So we hope that the US will enhance its climate engagement with Indonesia in concrete terms within supporting our climate action under our NDC. I thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much. It's very important to hear about these important internal planning processes that are going on within Indonesia, which strengthen the bilateral relations with the US and its joint ventures. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we're honored today by having a representative from the Parliament, the Congress of Indonesia. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know what his member of Parliament is.
Roro. Yeah, Roro names. Roro Dia.
Yes. Roro. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
It's important to do the work of the people.
Yes, Edward, thank you very much for the introduction. Good evening, Indonesia time, honorable guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Special thanks to United University for the reference, and also, of course, to the coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment for inviting me here to take part in the Hita Karana Forum. It's wonderful. It really is wonderful to see such a distinguished panel from the start. And as one of Indonesia's youngest parliamentarian here right now, particularly overseeing the Commission on Energy, Industry, Research and Technology, I'm growing more and more optimistic that by the end of the day, we all share the same vision and are headed towards the same direction. And I'd like to also kind of just commend that not only will this benefit my generation per se and generations to come, but also I think by this point we've come to a realization that we don't really have any other choice, right? Given that climate change is real and we're starting to see and feel the impacts of climate change altogether. I'd like to highlight that the most important factor when we speak of change, right, is having the will in itself to create that change. And I'm happy to update everyone here today that we're currently working on a renewables energy bill in Indonesia with the hopes that this will help make renewables more competitive within the energy market. And, within this bill, it will consist things like enacting a carbon tax or a carbon pricing scheme and other incentives alike. And with that being said, not only will this ease, the energy transition required for us to meet our NDC targets, including the target of 23% renewables by 2025. We heard the kind of like the long-term plan earlier by Pak Dadan from the Ministry of Energy. And, it really just is also a chance in itself for us to transition into a green economy, right? And thus also opening our doors to foreign direct investment and in turn creating green jobs opportunities. So there's an immense multiplier effect that can come out of this energy transition. We're monitoring closely how this transition can be maximized. And of course, technology plays a tremendous and a huge role in this. And I think we need to start focusing in more detail with regards to technologies such as carbon capture storage technologies or batteries for electric vehicles, and generally technologies associated to renewable energy implementation. And so this is something currently being discussed. I think we have to also take into consideration that the oil and gas industry is still very prevalent in Indonesia and that it plays a vital role in the development or really just economic growth altogether. So I think change is not easy to do, right? It requires we say gotong royong, collectively working together across sectors and across industries and making sure that we all have the same vision of realizing, the targets. Now we have the net zero emissions targets. So I think that collective goal of headed towards that direction is very, very important. And so that in itself will change the way that we do business, pushing pushing the circular economy, for example, and how we can derive economic growth through systems that are more better for the environment. So this is just a few words that I'd like to add. And Indonesia is making tremendous progress in this field. And we are making sure as parliamentarians, we're making sure that we are pushing the right policies that will help transcend the country and will help create a sustainable future for all of us. So thank you very much, Edward, for the opportunity.
Well, thank you for coming today.
Recording stopped.
It's
recording in progress.
As you make this critical point that policy has to go along with technology and business in addressing these issues. So it's good that there's a thoughtful examination of policy going on in the Parliament. And thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll now move from enabling policy to enabling business practice, where we have a gentleman who is unquestionably one of the world's thought leaders on business practice for a better world, Robert Kaplan from the Harvard Business School. Bob, are you on?
Yes, Edward, well, thank you. I just rejoined. I had to be offline on another call dealing with U.S. infrastructure bill, currently being very actively debated for the past 45 minutes, but I'm happy to rejoin. And so I apologize if anything I say replicates something I've said in the previous 45 minutes when I was absent. I do want to have 2 points from the business corporate side. I don't know the identity of the 192 people currently on the call. I fear that there are more participants from the public sector and the NGO than from the private sector. And I fear this because companies have to be part of the solution. And let me focus on the part of not the oil and gas industry just mentioned, but on the agribusiness sector, which is very important in Indonesia, because it connects with societal problems. So this is where the poorest people currently work, in smallholder farmers. And they're also part of the problem in the deforestation and the pollution of land and water because of inefficient agronomic practices. But the hopeful sign is that there's a movement underway, and it's occurring in Indonesia to a limited extent and even in Bali, but something that we want to emphasize, which is to connect the impoverished smallholder farmers to the agribusiness supply chains. This is a real challenge, but it can be done, and we have working examples of where it can be done. And by connecting them to agribusiness supply chains, we're able to transfer best agronomic practices in water use, in productivity, and crop protection and fertilizer to make these farmers more efficient and more productive, raising their incomes without deforestation and, in fact, with enhancement of land use. I'm in discussions in fact, writing a paper with people at Bayer who have launched the Better Life Farming Program. Very, very innovative program to bring modern agronomic practices to smallholder farmers in remote villages. And so the benefits here is this is a win-win-win. We can achieve higher income for these currently poor people. We can do it without environmental degradation, in fact, with enhancing the environment, and also improving societal gains that's going on here. So let's facilitate government action and partnerships, and enabling the dynamics of capitalism to operate in this triple bottom line way. Better economic performance, better societal performance, and for this audience, better environmental performance. This is actually feasible. There are these win-win solutions going on. The second part, let me build upon my professional background as an accounting professor. If you don't measure, we're not going to be able to manage and improve. And just recently, I became aware of where the current practices in ESG reporting and in environmental reporting in particular. And I was distressed to learn how inadequate, let me say, current standards of environmental reporting are. This traces back more than 2 decades to a group that came up with a framework of scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. This is a badly flawed framework. We can do better, and we need to do better. We're talking about carbon taxes. How are you going to tax corporations if we don't measure accurately and validly what their carbon footprint is? And the current thinking around this type of reporting needs to be improved. We know how to improve it. It's another paper that I've started to work on. So think about the measurement issue, because without measurement, we don't know where we are. We don't know whether we're improving or getting worse. But I mean measurement at the corporate level. And it's not just corporations, it's government agencies, ministries of transportation, ministries of defense have huge carbon footprints. We need to be measured accurately there and improve there. And so we need a big investment in this type of micro technology of measurement, but it's feasible. The good news is this is feasible because greenhouse gases is a physical measure. We can measure the quantities. We just have to do it in a way that's traceable to the products and services being produced by public corporations, by private corporations, and by government agencies. So I think this has to be part of the agenda going forward as well.
Well, Bob, thank you very much. As I'm sure you had the experience I have sitting on a public board of a public company and having to justify expenses which are not easily accounted for. It's a very challenging environment. So the creation of these standards will also allow sound and auditable decision-making. So thank you for the emphasis on this point. We're now going to go to my old friend, as old a friend as I have in Indonesia, that is Satrio, the president of the Indonesian Academy of Sciences, who's going to speak to us for a few minutes about the role of science and technology in the solution of these problems. Satrio, are you there?
Yes.
Welcome.
There will be a Hita Karana Center for Future Knowledge, which is located in Bali, and hopefully will be launched during G20 Summit 2022. The aim of the center is knowledge and technology transfer to improve quality of life, health, and happiness across the diversity of human communities and cultures, to seek solutions to complex regional and global challenges, and to contribute to economic development, to develop novel analytic and interactive paradigms, to develop knowledge exchange network with nearby national and regional partners, to dedicate resources to producing implementable and impactful solutions to address important issues of society. Then the expected outcomes of the center is, among other, implementable policies for increasing human health and happiness, creation of science-based evidence to underpin such policies, science and technology to reach Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, support of harmonious living for all peoples around the globe, leader in global development and beneficial for society, and significant and pervasive contribution to economic development. Thank you, Ed, for giving me the chance to give some aspiration.
Indeed, this is a grand aspiration, and it sort of rounds out now the set of resources, the human resources at an intellectual level, the human resources at a student level, the human resources at a scientific level, as well as the financial resources and natural capital that we have to work with. So it seems to me that Indonesia has made progress in identifying its priorities in global change, and it has arrayed a considerable community of Indonesians and collaborators from around the world to address these problems. Real progress is being made here. I'd like to now call on the U.S. representatives to the discussion to get some reflection and some reaction to this story about Indonesia and the bilateral relations. So I'm going to call on Reed Schuler, who's the senior advisor to John Kerry, who we met earlier, the Special Presidential Environment Energy.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's just an absolute privilege to take part in this event today. And it's been a joy to watch the collaboration flourish between the United States and Indonesia on addressing the challenge of our era. This has been a rich conversation today. And I think we've heard a lot about how the clean energy transition is going to provide an enormous opportunity economically to develop and deploy clean energy technologies at scale. The way we create, store, and move electricity, our light duty and heavy duty vehicles, the way we heat and cool our buildings, and the way we produce steel and cement. And it's hard to overstate the scale of these changes in the coming decades and at the scale of the both challenges and opportunities. The recent net zero report by the International Energy Agency has highlighted that to reach net zero by 2050 globally, we're going to have to dramatically accelerate the pace of clean energy technology deployment. And we're going to have to start accelerating that pace starting today. We need to quadruple the rate of deployment of renewable energy, surpassing 1,000 gigawatts every year by 2030. And the good news is that we can reach our global 2030 emission needs largely with technologies already on the market. But we know that innovation also plays a critical role in this work, and that reducing clean energy costs through these new technologies will speed the net zero transitions that we need around the world. And the more that we do starting now and throughout this critical decade to invest and deploy these clean energy technologies of today, the more that we build the market for the clean energy technologies of tomorrow and fuel innovation. And we're importantly increasingly aware that this is not work that our countries do alone. So, for example, we're excited that under the US-Indonesia Climate Working Group, the Task Force on Climate Ambition will hold a technical workshop to provide a deep dive on the climate modeling, data, and analysis across key sectors of the Indonesian economy that inform NDCs, long-term strategies, and net zero goals. And that workshop will look at projections under different technology pathways and help inform near-term and long-term decision-making on technology and policy pathways. And that'll feed back into our overall discussions. And we also know that we won't truly address the climate crisis unless we take an all-of-society approach, and that our efforts must be bottom-up as well as top-down. And that's why it's very exciting to hear about efforts like the Engineers Unite in Diversity initiative to source technical talent from across Indonesia and bring these people directly into the climate fight. And if we're going to be successful, this kind of initiative is exactly what we need to see more of. So it's been an absolute honor to take part in this rich conversation, which is itself one stop on the road of an even broader conversation between our two countries at the national level, at the level of governments, and at the level of private sector. And so thanks to THK and to our Indonesian hosts for bringing us together to have this conversation about how we can continue to deepen collaboration across sectors and invest in the solutions we need. So I'm looking forward to the remainder of our event. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. And thanks to all of your colleagues in the Executive Office of the President, various agencies, for participating in these deep and intensive talks. Well, colleagues, maybe the world looks a little bit better now than it did an hour ago when we've heard about the priorities of the Indonesian government. We've heard about the willingness of the United States government to interact and support, but mostly because we've identified what I have sketched out on my note paper here is the four sources of capital. There's the human capital, which in some sense is the most important. The human capital represented by students who might be participating in entrepreneurship exercises, for example. With the capital from scientists and engineers organized through the Academy of Sciences of Indonesia and the Hita Karana Center for Future Knowledge. And this blockbuster of an idea that we capitalize on the professional societies around the world to draw the experience and the strengths of these people in. There's, of course, the natural capital, which Indonesia abounds in. When I try to explain this to my colleagues who, being Americans, don't tend to understand climate issues as well as others, I say to them simply, look, we've lost the battle of Brazil. We can't afford to lose the battle of Indonesia. We have to maintain this rich natural capital for the future. There's the financial capital, which many have spoken about, and it's actually the topic of the other splinter group, the other working group. And the science and engineering capital, the know-how to do these projects. So I think these exist in Indonesia, they exist in partners, they exist with the assistance of the United States, and we should make this important alliance between Indonesia and the United States on these climate issues. So thank you all for participating in this breakout, this splinter group number 1. And I understand we're going to take a few-minute break and then recombine. So let's imagine that we're going to recombine at about 15 minutes after the hour.
Thank you so much, Ed, for your excellent sharing of the facilitation. We are indeed awaiting for the second group to wrap up. I see a hand raised. Can we take comments, perhaps? Of course, this is also an old friend who's very knowledgeable about Indonesia. Ambassador Blake, I see your hand.
Bob, how are you?
Thank you very much, Ed and Shobi and everybody else. It's delighted to be a part of this today. I just wanted to pick up on Professor Kaplan's remarks about the important role of the private sector. Many of you may know that there's an important global initiative underway now to help multinational corporations to set science-based emission reductions targets, and it's called sciencebasedtargets.org. So you can Google that. And basically, there are now more than 1,000 multinational corporations who are part of this initiative. I think about 750 or so have actual targets that they have set through a very rigorous science-based process. But very few Indonesian companies. And I think that's mostly because they're just not aware of it. So I would just like to suggest that as part of all of our efforts to help Indonesia to reduce its emissions, that this would be a real kind of low-hanging fruit to make some progress. And I think either Kadin could host an event of some sort, perhaps with the Ministry of Energy or Luhut, to just encourage companies to participate in this, because I think it could make a real difference. Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for your participation as always, Bob.
Thank you, Ambassador Blake. Thank you, Ed. How are we doing on group 2?
I think there's another hand raised, if I'm not mistaken.
Satya.
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, yes, go ahead. Good to have you.
Well, thank you very much, Shelby, for time. Hi, Bob. How are you? I like to echo what just Bob saying about the business that not really picked up, from Indonesian side, because if you may know that the renewable energy business in Indonesia is a bit slow because of the pricing issues, and the government like to solve with the PLN, because PLN is the main off-taker of the renewable energy, basically. So if we are able to manage with the pricing, that's going to move even further for the development of renewable energy in Indonesia. But beside that, I like also to emphasize in this prestigious forum that Indonesia has been living for a decade in the fossil fuel economy, and we like also to add the technology in order for the fossil fuel still contribute to the economy in Indonesia with reducing the emissions. I think the carbon capture storage that has been mentioned earlier with the previous speaker, I think that's the best if you like to contribute. If the US could bring technology that can make the carbon capture storage become more, quote unquote, is more efficient, more economies. And so all the fossil fuel economy could participate and could add on it. So it means that they will going to participate to reduce the emissions. This is one thing. The second thing is about what the electricity company PLN plan to do it in stages in order to to reduce their coal-fired plant. But at the moment, we still have plenty of coal-fired plant base. So again, the technology need to penetrate on that. So PLN is promoting what's so-called with the co-firing. This is one of the options in order to combine between coal and biomass. This is also the way we're trying to reduce the carbon footprints, by descending the coal-fired plant. So I think this is if the U.S. again could bring technology that could also reduce the pricing, that help a lot. Otherwise, it's difficult nowadays to stimulate the renewables in Indonesia as a whole. If you look at from the pricing issues, even though the government is now proposing a presidential decree for the pricing of renewable, but hopefully that will attract more investor to come to Indonesia. Renewables energy sectors. So I do agree with what the Professor Edwards mentions about again a lot of opportunity, a lot of thing can happen in the future by cooperating between Indonesia and the US, particularly on the technology side. I think that's all my take, for this tonight discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Satya. You're representing the National Energy Council, so very important voice in this conversation. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
I just wanted to seek some advice from the organizers since Deep Dive Session 2, I think it's still just wrapping up, but we're very pressed for time in the main floor because some of our other speakers have very limited time with us.
I suggest we just proceed.
Okay. All right. With everyone's blessing, may I then thank you so much for all your contribution to this excellent discussion in this roundtable on technology and innovation. While we wait for Deep Dive Session 2 on financing, may I introduce the facilitator the moderator for the second plenary session, Ibu Shinta Kamdani, Vice Chair of Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and the Executive Board of the International Chamber of Commerce. Ibu Shinta, the floor is yours for our next plenary session.
Hi, good evening from Jakarta. I know we're running behind. Shall we start on the second plenary session? So again, Your Excellency, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Shinta Kamdani. I'm the Vice Chairwoman of the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce Industry, Kadin Indonesia. I welcome you again to the second plenary session. I mean, I don't know whether I guess there's no newcomers coming in. So I just want to share with you a bit on the latest research. I think it's clear that to avoid the worst climate impacts, a global greenhouse gas emission, we'll need to drop by half by 2030. And I think many of our speakers mentioned this. And for us to reach the net zero emission around the mid-century. Considering this urgency, I think a rapidly growing number of national government, local government, and business leaders are making commitments to reach the net zero emission within their jurisdiction or their businesses. On the path to global net zero carbon emission, the finance industry, and this is what the topic will be on this plenary session, the finance industry is the key driver, while the technology is an enabler of sustainability. However, the ongoing health crisis has also shown a few unpleasant evidence-based data. We are faced with the fact that renewable energy investment globally actually has dropped by 34% during the 2020 caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Another challenge also we see comes from the fact that many public funds will concentrate on mitigating the pandemic impacts on public health and the economy, while the recession will derail the supply of private funds. Both of these factors will threaten the climate progress that we have achieved so far. That being said, of course, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting socioeconomic crisis make this mission even more challenging, and we are going to talk about how we can better synergize our action going forward to ensure that our aim for a net zero emission will be achieved. So let me start by introducing to you Your Excellency Bapak Arifin Tasrif, which is the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources of the Republic of Indonesia, who will be sharing some thought on a transition towards this net zero emission. So welcome, Pak Arif, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shinta. Honorable guests, distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My highest appreciation for Hita Karana for arranging for the second time this kind of meeting. The theme is aligning for climate action on road to net zero emission. Such a great initiative to discuss and share views on our transition process towards net zero emission. During the Leader Summit on Climate in last April, a number of countries have pledged to implement policies to achieve net zero emissions in 2060. The target for 2050 as a follow-up to the Paris Agreement. In the meeting, our President Joko Widodo also stated that Indonesia is committed to encourage green development and increase investment for energy transition. Indonesia is determined to reduce emission at least 29%, or equivalent to more than 300 million tons CO2 emission greenhouse gas by 2030. By last year, Indonesia nationally determined contribution, the realization for energy sector had reached more than 60 million tons of CO2 emission. The main contributors are from new and renewable energy, energy efficiency, and fuel switching. In order to further achieve net zero emission, our ministerial office has been preparing an energy transition roadmap to carbon neutral as follows. From 2021 to 2025, renewable energy will reach 23% of total energy mix in 2025, and there is no additional coal power plant unless it is already having purchasing power agreement, contract, and under construction stage. Converting the use of diesel fuel into gas power plant with the total capacity around 2 GW, then further gradually transforming to renewable energy afterwards. In addition to that, we are also carrying out study for an electricity todo. We name it Nusantara Grid, which connects the electricity network between major islands, as well as Maluku, Nusa Tenggara, and Papua, so that the electricity of renewable energy can be transmitted to broader areas, especially to those that have minimum resources but high electricity demand. From 2026 to 2030, solar PV and electrical appliances, especially household and transportation, will be developed massively, targeted to reach 2 million cars, 13 million motorcycles, and more than 10 million units of electric stoves. From 2031 to 2035, additional capacity of 38 gigawatt renewable energy power plant, prioritizing on solar and hydropower, as well as deployment of carbon capture and storage or carbon capture utilization storage in fossil power plants. From 2036 to 2040, there will be a peaking emission to 2040 or earlier. Integrated gas combined cycle power plant with CCS and 100% sales of electric motor vehicle. From 2041, 45, and 50, we are going to develop nuclear power plants and also hydrogen energy. Coal power plant and gas power plant will be retired. Right now, we are preparing a program for the retirement. So by these days, I think the 100% sales of electric car will happen, and then carbon neutral hopefully can be achieved in 2050. To successfully implement this energy transition roadmap, it is important to acknowledge that there are a variety of technologies and energy can be utilized. Each country has its own respective capabilities and circumstances in transitioning toward a sustainable future. Therefore, support and cooperation with other countries and relevant organizations that have well experience in the fields of energy system, policy planning, technology, capacity building, including technical assistance, and the most important thing is financing, will be greatly beneficial in aiding Indonesia's effort to expedite renewable energy transition and recover the economy. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, to implement energy transition is certainly not an easy job, but with commitment, consistency, and collaboration, I believe that this target is not impossible to achieve. We are looking forward to work together with all parties to tackle various challenges in implementing the just energy transition process. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think great. We all great to know that Indonesia, I think, has a very clear roadmap in terms of our energy transition to carbon neutral, and I think we've been really much looking forward to this. And I think that our government has made a very clear progress in having a clear pathway. Thank you, Minister, for your insightful views. I think it's really a no-brainer that advancing the pace of transition towards a climate resilient economy will require also enormous of resources and investment. I think a recent estimation from OECD stated that we need at least $6.9 trillion infrastructure investment per year to meet global development needs through 2030. So mobilizing trillions of dollars of low carbon investment is a huge challenge, but it also presents a massive opportunity for innovative finance. So we're talking about green bond, green sukuk, SDG Indonesia 1 to be the bridge toward this net zero emission. The next speaker is Bapak Luki Ackerman, Director General of Budget Financing and Risk Management from the Ministry of Finance and the Indonesian Chair of Climate Working Group. Bapak Luki will present his insight on the topic of sustainable and blended finance for our common future. So, Pak Luki, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bu Sinta. His Excellency Bapak Luhut Pandjaitan, Coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investment, His Excellency Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs, Bapak Airlangga Hartarto, His Excellency Chairman of OJK, Bapak Wimbo, His Excellency Minister Arifin Tasrif, Excellency Minister Soeharto Manoarfa, Vice Minister Mahendra, Vice Minister Alodohong, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening from Jakarta. It's great connecting with you in this virtual meeting, and I wish you all good health and condition. Indonesia has pledged our strong commitment to shift the economy to a low carbon and climate resilient development path that has been integrated in the development policies, strategies, and programs. In this regard, the national policy directions consist of 1, improving the environmental quality, 2nd, enhancing disaster and climate resilience, and 3rd, low carbon development. Accordingly, we at the Ministry of Finance has a role related to fiscal and financing policies such as climate finance policy formulation and coordination, planning and budgeting for climate programs, climate budget taking, mobilizing other financing sources for climate actions. For example, government has mainstreamed climate change into the National Medium-Term Development Plan 2022-2024 and established National Action Plan both on mitigation and adaptation. So accordingly, the government has consistently allocated around 4.1% of our budget for climate actions over the last 5 years. We have started to implement climate budget tagging or CBT for the mitigation budget in 2016 and CBT adaptation budget in 2018. Climate budget tagging is a feature in our planning and budgeting system to track government spending on climate change and climate-related projects. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we know climate change actions are unfortunately quite costly. The latest estimation show that, for example, in the second biennial update report, Indonesia needs at least 3,461 trillion rupiah by 2030 to fund climate change mitigation projects. The average per year requires around 266 trillion rupiah. The government spending on climate change has been quite limited. So far, recorded only around 373 billion rupiah in the period of 2016 and 2019. In short, with current pace, there would be a significant budget gap to achieve the target set in our NDC. So with the state budget can only cover 34% of the total climate financing need. That is why collaboration with our international partners in financing knowledge and technology is key going forward. Furthermore, toward the net zero target, fiscal policy is crucial to fill the gap and leverage private finance. We provide incentives, tax facilities, and public-private partnership scheme to stimulate private investment. And we assign dedicated state-owned enterprises such as PTSMI to source and mobilize funds for climate actions. In addition, with the rapid development of global green bond market in recent years, we also look for any opportunity in developing new and innovative instruments to finance green projects. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we know, Indonesia is the first sovereign green sukuk issuer in the world. Global Green Sukuk is innovative financing that is part of Government of Indonesia commitment to supporting Indonesia NDC. Minister of Finance has so far issued sovereign global green sukuk 4 times. The first one was issued in March 2018 with the amount of 1.25 billion US dollar. Second issuance was in 2019, around 750 million US dollar. And in November 2019, we issued the first retail green sukuk around 1.46 trillion rupiah. During the pandemic, Government of Indonesia issued the third global green sukuk in June 2020 in the amount of 750 million. And last but not least, in 2021, early this month, Indonesia has achieved the first ever the global 30-year green sukuk issuance in the world, with the participation coming from green investor reached 57%. So the impact of green sukuk issuance 2020 is not only environmental benefit, but also social benefit as shown in our impact report. In terms of environment benefit, for example, the issuance is projected to reduce 1.4 million tons CO2 greenhouse emission. So in terms of social benefit, the issuance is projected to fulfill raw water supply needs for drinking water of 275 million, and benefit more than 2 million households due to the improved waste management. Moreover, following the success of green sukuk issuance, we are now currently preparing the issuance of SDG bonds. To achieve this, we are developing a new comprehensive framework covering various aspects, including green, social, and even blue financing. The framework is called the SDG Government Securities Framework. This SDG Government Securities Framework has been developed to demonstrate how Government of Indonesia intends to issue different thematic bond, green bond, blue bond, SDG bond, to fund projects that will deliver environmental and social benefit to the nation. However, our experience suggests that the issuance of thematic bond does not guarantee pricing benefit from a more competitive yield. The yield of green sukuk issuance is not significantly different from non-thematic bonds. This condition might discourage other potential issuers from issuing green or other sustainability bonds. Therefore, to encourage more sovereigns or corporation, private sectors to issue green or other social bonds, investors and market should be able to provide better incentives on sustainable or green instruments, in particular through pricing benefit. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia has always been very committed in the carbonization of the economy, which could be supported by several means. For example, phasing out fuel subsidies or deploying policy measures such as carbon pricing, just explained by Minister Arifin before. These are the concrete action to achieve emission reduction target and a just, affordable, and sustainable transition. Many countries are making progress in this effort, including Indonesia. Indonesia has undertaken a bold fuel subsidy reform in 2015. The government has cut the subsidy for gasoline and reallocated the saving for more productive spending, such as health, education, and infrastructure development. Making this happen required a combination of mitigating the risk reform, getting the right momentum, and managing public opinion. Indonesia is now in the process of finalizing presidential regulation on carbon pricing, which will provide guidance to set up a domestic policy and national framework for carbon pricing. We believe that a proper carbon pricing framework will increase economic opportunities for the private sector to support Indonesia in scaling up emission reduction activities that go beyond the unconditional NDC commitments. In short, carbon pricing can benefit emerging economies as it provides a source of revenues for climate action and achieve the NDC targets. However, adoption of carbon pricing should go together with international support for developing countries. In this context, it is important to note that developed countries should transform their commitment into action by providing affordable technology and financing for developing countries. Ministry of Finance has also put effort to open financing access from global resources, such as GCF. As we know, the GCF is the world's largest source of climate finance. GCF so far has approved 3 project proposals from Indonesia and provided grants for the NDA, Project Preparation Facility for PTSMI, and also RED Plus result-based payment. To mobilize and diversify other sources of ADG's financings, Ministry of Finance has established some financial platforms named SDG Indonesia 1 and BPDLH, or Environment Fund Management Agency. Indonesia 1 is a blended finance platform managed by PTSMI to facilitate philanthropic involvement, engagement, international donors, green investors, commercial bank, multilateral development bank, and other investors. BPDLH, on the other hand, is a government agency that aims to supporting conservation and environmental management and is expected to also cover support for a wide range of sectors, including biodiversity and resiliency through a wide range of instruments. It collects funds from various sources, including donors, and provides grants, equity, loan, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, for closing, we hope all this collective and concerted effort will be beneficial for all of us in achieving the net zero carbon emission target. And we at Ministry of Finance stand ready to support this ambitious yet needed initiative on bolder climate change action. Thank you very much. Very good evening. Back to you, Bu Sinta.
Thank you, Pak Loki, for explaining that Indonesia has launched also the agency to manage funds for this climate change management as part of the effort to meet its climate goals. And Indonesian government also announced its plan to introduce the feed-in tariff pricing scheme as well as develop blended finance to boost investment in the green energy sector. So we can see how it supports each other to this target. There's a note coming from one of our participants here, Paluki, that mentioning that it will be great for financing incentive mechanism to be placed high in the agenda of G20 financial track. So just a little note for you. Participant, as you know, Indonesia will hold presidency of G20 next year. So I think there's a reminder here, Pak Luki, just a note to put this also as the agenda of the G20 financial track. So I think our next speaker, definitely, as we know that combating climate change also need collaboration we now would like to invite Mr. John Morton, climate counselor to the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, to share some of his remarks. Secretary of Treasury in practically of how U.S. and Indonesia collaboration could also bring a significant avenue in combating climate change. Please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, Ministers, Minister Luhut, Secretary Kerry before, distinguished guests. I'm delighted to speak with you today about the opportunities that Indonesia will have in securing its path toward a net zero future, the types of sustainable and blended financing that will pave that path, and how the U.S. can support Indonesia's climate finance goals. As we've talked about today, finance obviously plays a vital role in accelerating a clean energy economy and building a resilient future. And as we work to transition our global economy, we are committed to working with Indonesia to catalyze the financing necessary for your ambitious climate targets. The fight against climate change requires unprecedented global cooperation and a shared sense of urgency and commitment. And I think the U.S.-Indonesia partnership exemplifies the type of cooperation that is necessary at this time. The Department of Treasury is pleased to continue our close relationship and partnership with Indonesia through the bilateral Climate Working Group's Task Force on Sustainable Finance, which Treasury's Acting Assistant Secretary Larry McDonald and the Ministry of Finance Director General Luki Alferman are ably co-leading. Even in the relatively short period of time that the task force has been working, we've already made impressive progress toward together by increasing cooperation in areas that will be vital to unlocking financing for Indonesia, including capital market development, thematic bond incentives, and energy transition strategies. Our joint work on the task force is timely since the costs of inaction for our health, our economies, and future generations are simply too high. That is why the United States and Treasury have implemented a range of new initiatives to support climate finance internationally. For example, earlier this year, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen launched the Climate Hub, which I lead, to drive a high-level focus on climate finance and coordinate expertise across the Treasury Department in support of the fight against climate change. In addition, under our recently announced International Climate Finance Plan, Treasury will work with the multilateral development banks, which are, as you know, among the largest sources of public climate finance, to ensure that these institutions have ambitious targets as well as policies that are focused on mobilizing the private finance necessary. A special interest for Treasury and partner U.S. government departments is a focus on coal transition. And that is why we are supporting bilateral and multilateral efforts to finance the transition to clean electricity. Earlier this month, you may have seen, we and our G7 partners announced the launch of the Climate Investment Fund's Accelerating Coal Transition Investment Program. And with this support of up to $2 billion in new donor funds, the ACT program will mobilize up to $10 billion in financing for coal transition, including the expedited decommissioning of current coal facilities in countries around the world. We are also encouraging the MDBs to develop transition finance platforms, such as the Asian Development Bank's Energy Transition Mechanism, which will accelerate retirement of coal plants and has identified Indonesia as a key focus country. We are particularly pleased to collaborate with Indonesia on coal transition through our bilateral task force, and I commend Indonesia's commitment to end construction of coal-fired power plants by 2023 and to put a halt to all coal plants that have not yet reached financial close. We're very pleased to be working with Indonesia on the roadmap toward the cleaner future. However, we also understand very intimately domestically how difficult this transition can be and how vital it is to ensure that coal-impacted economies are not left behind. In the United States, as you know, we have struggled with this ourselves, and we've learned some hard-won lessons, which we look forward to sharing with our Indonesian counterparts. And that's why the U.S. is currently organizing a series of workshops through the task force that will bring together top thinkers, technical experts, and government officials to work on potential financial tools and just transition pathways that support Indonesia's net zero goal. Though this transition will be difficult, there is no shortage of private sector financing for renewable infrastructure. In fact, investors are demanding more projects that align with sustainability goals. Investors have told us there is almost no limit to the capital they can direct toward green infrastructure if they have a steady stream of bankable, reliable, transparent, and sustainable projects. And so we are working to unlock financing by dismantling the barriers investors have named, such as lack of data and transparency, by advocating for indicators and supporting disclosure discussions in the G20. Despite the barriers, the numbers show that demand for clean energy is still soaring. And over the last several years, ESG investing, that is investing in line with environmental, social, and governance principles, has increased tremendously. ESG fund assets grew from just 10 billion in 2015 to nearly 250 billion in March of 2021. Companies like the Vanguard Group and BlackRock, which together control an estimated 14 trillion in assets, have committed to net zero portfolios themselves. And there's a growing number of financial firms that are committing to net zero platforms by mid-century. We would like to help Indonesia harness this tremendous demand by supporting your efforts on incentives for thematic bond issuances and identifying de-risking tools like guarantees and political risk insurance that could expand the volume of clean bankable projects in Indonesia. Treasury experts in our Office of Technical Assistance have worked on these and related topics with other countries and look forward to doing so now with Indonesia. Through the task force, the US and Indonesia are exploring many fruitful areas of collaboration that will increase investment flows toward Indonesia's green projects and enable climate and enable ambitious climate targets. Together, we simply must find ways to leverage our public sector dollars to mobilize private sector investments to further accelerate this transition, including support for the communities it will most affect. And I believe our work in partnership with the Asian Development Bank under the ACT, upcoming bilateral coal transition workshops, and bilateral technical assistance to mobilizing ESG investments will help us get there faster. I look forward to doing everything we can do together in a short period of time. And I would like to thank you again for the invitation to speak here today and for convening this very, very important meeting and topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John Morton. Unfortunately, the organizer doesn't have time anymore to let us have a discussion, but I just want to note there is a comment in the chat box, which I will read to you, saying that we need more concrete effort to make more projects in emerging countries like Indonesia bankable. Opportunities are abundant, yet very few bankable. So underlying that, I think I do believe that we have a very, very high hopes on how we can move forward together. And I think some of the plans that you have shared definitely give especially on the coal transition and financing for this will be very much important for Indonesia. So before I will give the floor back to our MC, I would like to thank everyone for joining this session, especially our speaker. I think I want to just close with a quote from Marshall McLuhan saying that there are no passengers on spaceship Earth. We are all the crew. So let us work as the team for protecting our Earth and to achieve net zero emission to a whole new level. So I'm Shinta Kamdani. Good evening to you all. Back to you, MC.
Thank you so much, Ibu Shinta, for your excellent facilitation as always. Pleasure to have you, and thank you to our speakers for signaling very strong support and commitment. I'm just about to enter into our closing sequence, but I think today has been very encouraging. And there's lots to do, but today is a very important first step. And so to close, I would like to invite His Excellency Airlangga Hartarto, Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs of Republic of Indonesia, and to provide the closing remark for today's session.
Pandjaitan, Honorable Mr. John Kerry, Her Excellency Ms. Siti Nurbaya Bakar, His Excellency Mr. Arifin Tasrif, Her Excellency Mrs. Sri Mulyani Indrawati, His Excellency Mr. Suharto Monoarfa, His Excellency Mr. Wimbo Santoso, His Excellency Mr. Mahendra Siregar. This has been a very rich discussion, and I very much welcome the valuable insight that have been shared by many. I would like to thank the US government for its support and to all the speakers and participants for your support during this forum. I would like to thank the Hita Karana Forum for its leadership and collaboration in support of the government of Indonesia. I think you can see from the presentation in this forum that the Indonesian government is playing its role to bring about a better future for well-being of its people, as well as contributing to the global goals. Indonesia appreciates the initiative of Natural Capital Carbon Communities Superpower. Indonesia is unique blue and green Nusantara or archipelago, endorsed with us natural capital wealth. Indonesia has the largest standing rainforest in Asia and the third largest endowment of tropical forests in the world. We enjoy rich biodiversity, mangrove cover, and extensive peatland. We have mainstream low carbon development into our midterm development plan in line with our NDC's commitment. The President issued a permanent moratorium for clearing of primary rainforest and peatland. The impact was immediate, and Indonesia have successfully reduced the deforestation rate. And we launched a national plastic action partnership to drive the global effort on plastic pollution and promoting reduce, reuse, recycle, and leverage. We are taking regional leadership by hosting the UN Sustainable Development Solution Networks. ASEAN is focused on regional developments, and individually, the members have their own challenge. As we recover from the pandemic, while we need to provide jobs, the recovery plan needs to do more. It's opportunity to set out on a sustainable development path. For Indonesia, opportunities abound from the growing share of the population that will live in cities, including the faster growing mid-sized cities. The massive digital market and opportunities around renewable energy such as geothermal, wind, and solar power. Nickel developments align with investment in lithium batteries and electric vehicle is promising opportunity. Indonesia has reformed significantly the investment climate by issuing the Omnibus Law job creation. It will give more windows to investors and development partners without compromising the environmental protections. We see entrepreneurial technological change and innovative finance as key to transforming our development path into green economy. We plan to launch the Center of Excellence in Technology and Finance during our 2022 G20 dinner. We are looking to the private sector for tech innovation because through private sector entrepreneurship, we can secure the massive change needed to meet the global goals. A Center for Future Knowledge is a platform for technological innovation and transfer with global collaboration. The Center of Future Knowledge Green and Clean Renewable Energy Hub will support the value creation for better business and better world. The center will focus on the role of technology transfer, R&D by the private investment, with leading global academia and research in realizing a sustainable future in Indonesia. We have launched the THK roadmap on blended finance that has been developed by a global community with the guidance from the OECD, and we will establish a multilateral global blended finance institute in Bali. The Global Blended Finance Institute will play a role in attracting funding toward developing high-quality decarbonization projects to mitigate funders and private investor risk with capacity building on project preparation and blended finance principles on good practice, transparency, mobilization, inclusiveness, and impact measures. We will make every effort to accelerate progress, including exploring the possibility of achieving net zero. Accomplishing these ambitious goals, including the scaling up of renewable energy, can create more jobs than relying on fossil fuels. However, to deliver more ambitious target requires transfer of technology and investment to support the transition. We welcome the collaboration of our partners across the G20, international organization, and civil society. Our newly established Sovereign Wealth Fund, INA, will be an important entity of funding for this development. We welcome support through investment in this fund. As President Joko Widodo chair in G20 in 2022, I can assure the global community that climate change and support for emerging economies and developing countries to achieve global climate ambition will be a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Hartarto. I think as we sit here and listen to all the excellent commitments and support, I do allow myself to feel that maybe my child and her children's children will have a different future than the one that we feared. And before we close, I just want to invite perhaps one more voice that we should be listening from that has been absent from our gathering today, which is the voice of our youth. Our future generation. We have a representative, a young lady from West Papua, who actually wrote this poem for the high-level meeting last year. Her name is May Osok. And so if I may invite our tech team to bring May's voice into our conversation tonight.
Imagine, beautiful in green, delightful in blue, a home where born forest, mountain, sea, and gold. Richness of customs and traditions, an open heart, a willingness, a warm hug. We are here. Hand in hand we run against the world left behind, run against the ignorance, run against the world underdeveloped. We learn, we work. We stand in love and passion to be a name, to be a better home, to be a blessed future. We build up. For it is not heaven fallen earth, it is heaven on earth. A child of unity in diversity.
Thank you, May, for bringing your voice and reminding us why we're all here for the future. I would like to invite, before we close, please, two more things. One, please bring in your voice. We have a Mentimeter poll just to capture how do you feel right now after. Of course, it's been a long evening, but I hope it's worth it. And so we would like to hear from your voice. The link is in the chat box right now, and please stay for a group photo and just to say goodnight to everyone after this. So please go ahead, click on the chat and the link. It seems that it's not loading the results, team. And perhaps while we do that, we can take the time to take our group photo while we figure out the technical side of Menti. So if you would please open your camera and put your best smile after this long evening, but hopefully feeling hopeful for the future. Thank you so much for all of us for joining this historic moment in time, potentially very, very impactful step towards a collective future of net zero carbon through collaboration between Indonesia and United States. Thank you so much. While that is loading, can we take the group photo first and then we can go back to the Menti? All right, on to gallery view, and we do the happy, shall we? We have this happy greetings for a happier future.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile, please. Hold on for a moment.
And hold that smile, might be a few pages.
Okay, thank you, Bapak Ibu.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Please unmute your mic and say your good night, goodbye, or say your greetings and best wishes. Thank you so much. Apologies for the overtime. Patience and your commitment.
Bye.
Good night.
I'm a grandfather. Congratulations, the Gordon.
Congratulations, Gordon, on new life.
Good to see you, Sherry. Daniel from Brazil.
Hi,
Bye-bye.
Daniel. Hi.
And thank you, Sherry. Thank you.
Congratulations, Gordon.
From Japan.
Congratulations to all.
Beautiful island. Behind the poem, it was a beautiful island there.
That's Raja Ampat, Papua, West Papua.
Papua.
A beautiful way to end. Congratulations. Thank you. Fantastic evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Good to see you. Thank you, our moderator, facilitators. Catherine, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shobi. Thanks, Sherry. Excellent.
Thank you, VP.
Learned a lot.
Thank you.
Stay healthy, everyone. Stay safe. Take good care.
Everybody, stay healthy and happy.
Yes, Bu Puni, good to see you.
Yeah, Bu Puni, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Bu Puni.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you,
a very beautiful poem, by the way.
Aryoto, terima kasih, Sugeng Dalu.
Waduh, thank you banget.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Night,
So, Gordon,
Pak
congratulations
Sir Gordon.
on the new grandchild.
Wah, congratulations, Sir Gordon.
Congratulations, Sir Gordon.
It's been a great day for me. I have a new granddaughter and I have fabulous meetings. So come on.
Wow. Congratulations.
Adrian, thank you for sharing a very exciting initiative.
Yeah. I'm excited and extremely honored to participate.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you for the work that you do.
But Darmo is still here? Oh no, he's left. Okay.
Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, Pak Adrian. Selamat istirahat.
Good night, Angga. Bye, Mbak Puni.
Selamat istirahat semuanya. Have a good rest, everyone.
Yeah, good night. Good night, Pak Adi.
Pak Adi still here, Pak Adi?
Adi, Bu Mari.
Pak Adi ada.
Adi ada tapi nggak buka